I started stream and let me see if everything's working. And yeah. So let's get started on like the topic for today. Let's discuss map control. So what is map control? And like it is one of the most important concepts in Overwatch, but like as it is as nebulous as it is important for like a lot of players because you don't really like as a player like you only get like a first person view, like you can see like your teammates, but like you're a lot of players, they don't really think about the game in terms of map control. They think more of like, hey, I'm Tracer, I can go on the flank. Hey, I'm Ryan, I'm supposed to push on the point, and like so on. But like map control like is a huge factor in winning or losing Overwatch games, and like a lot of games are decided based on like who has the superior ability to control the map. So let's go over like an example of a map where map control is really important. Busan Sanctuary. I think this is Sanctuary. So like on Busan Sanctuary, it's a control map. There's a point, and this point is like, really important because like obviously it's the objective that both teams have to take. But like just because the point is like the objective does not mean it is the most important space to take. If you like if you're playing like Brawl and like you decide like you want to push onto you're just gonna like push on the point, then like you're gonna get destroyed by like teams who know how to like take map control, because, and this is like the important part, this is not the most important space. Like the area around the point is the most important space. Like the areas around the point. And why? Because like let's say the enemy's rolling out on like a spam comp. Let's say they're running like wrong color. Let's say they're rolling out on like a poke comp or a spam comp, like same thing. Let's say they're playing like a hog sigma comp. Like if the enemy like knows how to like if the enemy knows how to take control of the flanks, like for example, like the drum room is like one of the most important spaces, because like the thing with the point is that like this drum is like the central cover on this point. Like this drum is like the main thing protecting like the players on point from damage coming like from in front of them. But if you control the drum room, then like this drum immediately becomes irrelevant, because it has there's LOS on like the players who are using the drum to protect themselves from this angle. Like you might ask, like why can't like the players just like go on the other side? But let's say like for example there's a flanking hog on the other side, and like the players like they control all like not only like the center like somewhat, but also like the flanks. Then suddenly like this drum is useless as cover. Like anywhere you go, you're gonna be exposed to enemies, and in this case, like you can turn on point, you can get 5 to 10% progress, but like the enemy will eventually win the fight. And why? Because like they have so many angles, so many options on you, that like they can just spam you out. Like wherever you take cover, it's not gonna matter, because like there are like so many angles that you have to deal with. And like furthermore, like if you're playing like something like Brawl, which is weak at taking map control, because like Brawl has to stay grouped together, while like spam comps like they can like kind of play split. Like if you're playing like if you're playing a comp that's like that has to like stay together, well, like Brawl, then it's so easy to like just surround you. You have like little way of contesting the actual angles. Like that's why like heroes like D.Va are so like important to Brawl. For example, they allow the Brawl team to at least take some map control. Like for example, instead of playing Zarya, they had a D.Va here. Then like D.Va can try, like if the hog tries to like go more aggressive, then D.Va can try like matrix like the damage from hog and try to like force the hog out back to like his team or back to health pack. So and also like with Brawl comps, like they have their abilities only are good in like one direction. Like for example, Ryan Shield can like block an angle, but you can only block one of these angles. So like if you want to, let's say in this diagram, you want to block the echo from doing damage, and then like you still have Sigma, you still have Zen, you still have Kree. Like usually this would be something like Ash though. It's just my stored comp presets. You still have a Hog to worry about, and even if you have Diva and you have Diva dealing with this angle, well, guess what? There's still like three more angles to contend with. So like map control just refers to like being able to use or influence the area around the objective. And I say around the objective because like it's the objective that matters the most. Like like in the end, but like the thing is that like you don't control the objective by like just like jamming everyone into the objective. Like there are some maps such as like Nepal like Village where teams will try to turtle on objective. Like they run Brawl, they run Sim May, and they will try to turtle around objective. And like their goal is just to stall like the objective as much as possible. But that's only because the objective itself has a lot of cover. Like map control like around the objective doesn't matter as much. But on maps like Busan Sanctuary, where the objective doesn't have a lot of cover, like controlling the objective like itself, like directly occupying the objective, is not like the most important part. The most important part is occupying the space around the objective, or like trying to clear the space around the objective, so that if you're a Brawl team, like you don't get like ganked from like so many different angles that it's impossible to defend. It's impossible to hold like the objective for like more than like 10-15 seconds, and that may give you percentage. But if they win the fight, consider this: like if they win the fight, then they can like just set up they can just like set up the defense that they want. Like for example, if you try to like push main, if they know that you want to push main, then like they could just like set up angles around main. They could have like a Kree on the window here. They could have Sigma here. They could have the backline right here, and they could have like Echo like around point, and then they could have a Hog just giga flanking here, and suddenly like it's really gonna be really hard to it's gonna be really hard to like push on into point from main. Like the Brawl team will have to like waste a lot of time, like clearing drum room, or like pushing, rotating right side still. And if you rotate right side, sure, you're gonna clear one angle, but they can just like set up new angles, and like the problem will become like pronounced again. So so like map control is important, not only when you're like contesting objective, but like when you're like losing a fight, then like the enemy gets to like take the angles that they want, and it's gonna make it really hard to like retake. That's why retakes on like on like control maps, for example, can be so damn brutal. It's like you lose a fight, the enemy like gets to defend anywhere. They get to choose where they get to defend. And okay, by the way, this Sigma, the Sigma's supposed to be here. The Hog's more self-sufficient. That's why he wants to take the deeper flanks. But like the point is that map control if your team is really good at taking map control and using it, then you can make it extremely difficult for the enemy team to execute their win condition, because like if they don't control the map, like in all comps, like if they don't have good map control, or like they don't know how to like clear angles and stuff, then like the enemy team can kill 2 or 3, but like they're still gonna have like flanks to contend with, and if they don't clear those flanks, then there's a chance that like your team will just clutch the fight out. So so let's go over like what each role contributes in terms of map control. Let me see. Okay, Blackboard time. So let's go over like the most obvious role, tanks. And like, what does a tank do in terms of map control? Well, like tanks like there are like obviously 2 types of tanks, main tanks and off tanks, but like in general, like tanks are responsible for clearing space, and holding space. So like the reason why tanks are so important is like the same reason why map control is like so important. It's like why actually it's the reverse. Like map control is so important that like it's why tanks are the most important role. Tanks are like there to like make space, clear the space for like your team to use and like hold the space so that they can't just like push into it for free. So better term might be like they enforce the space. Like if anyone tries to contest the space that is like not a tank, that's gonna be really difficult because like tanks might not kill, but like tanks will make it hard for them to like occupy the space. And so like let's say like okay, let's just minimize this example. Okay, let's move these counters. They're called. Okay, let's move these counters for the side for a moment, and let's just yeah. Let's say you're a Cree, and like obviously like Cree like this, and there's a Rhine, let's say holding point. I guess. And like so like if you're like a Cree, you obviously don't want to be shooting shields because like if you want to be shooting shields all night and just go Bastion, but like you want to be like shooting squishies, you want to be actually threatening kills on like the back line. So like it's like okay, let's just bring the counters back for now. So you want to obviously be threatening kills on like the juicy back line, but like here's the thing, like Cree like can take angles. Obviously, Cree can contribute to map control, but like he's not a tank. He has like a limited health pool, even though it's like buffed a bit. He has a limited health pool, so like obviously like hey, this Cree would like to like maybe like use this angle, or like use this angle. And how does the blue team prevent like Cree from doing that? Well, they could send the Cree to like duel the Cree, but like it's 50-50. Like you might kill the Cree, but like you might also lose your own Cree. And like especially like if they're playing like a spam comp, which like is better at supporting DPS. But like that's where a tank goes into play. So let's say you're playing D.Va, and let's say the Cree wants to take this angle. Well, as D.Va, you can just like fly here, matrix some of the shots, or fly here, like put some poke into the Cree, or like if they want to take an even deeper angle. Oh, sorry. If they want to take an even deeper angle, then like you can even just fly at the Cree and like even threaten to kill. But like the point is that like tanks, even though they might not be able to kill as much as DPS, like they're able to like make enemies relocate better than like DPS. They're able to like enforce space. So like that's why like I say D.Va is like really important in Brawl, because like it allows the Brawl team to contest angles without having to like rotate your entire team just to like clear a Cree. And like rotations, like the reason you don't want to rotate too much is because like rotations are attackable, because if you try like rotate to chase this Cree, then like the enemy will set up angles around him, and then they'll just like pick at your back line. Like there's an Echo, there's a Zen, there's a Hog, for example. Tanks are there to like not only clear space, like for example, if you're like a Rhine team, and let's say the enemy's holding like drum room, then you can just push into the drum room and they'll like shoo out immediately. But they're also there to like enforce space and punish anyone who tries to intrude within like their area of influence. So like a D.Va flying to clear an angle, for example. And like another example is like Sigma. Sigma was used to be really, really good because like you could just place a shield and like stop all off angles, like stop off angles without even having to move. So like old Sigma, like for example, at 1500 HP shield, and like you didn't even necessarily have to risk yourself by taking off angles. Like if this Kree's taking an angle here, like you might want to take the off angle still because it allows you to put more pressure. But like old like Sigma gameplay used to be like pretty bad. Like nobody really knew how to play Sigma. They didn't take off angles with Sigma. But it used to be the fact that Sigma had like a really powerful shield and could just shield off angles, and like it made like comps sorry and like one of the things that it made his like long range poke, like it made it hard for like, for example, like dive comms back then, because like to clear angles, like let's say you're running, like to clear angles, like Sigma only had to like release his like extremely OP shield. Like he didn't have to like just risk himself by like taking an angle and clearing the angle himself. But also like his long range poke like allowed him to just influence a lot of the map. So like if a Winston was trying to like get behind the team, then Sigma could just like say, hey, I'm just gonna like go like not even that close to you, and I can just like spam shots, and boom, your Winston will have to like go back to their team. So yeah, that's what tanks do. They make space or they enforce space. But like, what's the difference between a main tank and an off tank then? How do they interact with space? Well, a main tank has like one more special job that an off tank doesn't have. Main tanks are extremely tough, like to focus down and kill. Well, like some Ryan players would disagree with me, but like in general, like if you're engaging right, like if everyone just shoots the main tank, then like that's what the enemy team wants. But the thing is, main tanks are responsible for drawing attention towards themselves. Main tanks go in and like, for example, when Ryan goes in and like slams into the enemy, and enemy has to like kite and use a lot of cooldowns. A Winston goes into the enemy and like zones off the enemy backline. A Brawl slams on the enemy and like draws a lot of attention towards himself, threatens a kill in the backline. They have to use cooldowns and stuff. But the thing is, like main tanks, like they not only like make space and enforce space, like they can also draw like so much attention towards themselves it creates like a window in which like your team can basically like can go really aggressive with map control. So this is what I mean. This is probably best illustrated by an example. But like a main tank, like for example, let's say like you have the backline here. Like usually when the backline wouldn't be here, this is a pretty terrible position. But like let's say you have like some players playing split apart from their team, which is good for map control. Well, like for example, let's say you're playing something like Double Bubble, which is like the Winston Zarya comp, and you let's say you nano your Winston, and your Winston goes into the backline. Well, like suddenly like the angles that these players are taking are suddenly now like really dangerous for them. And why? Because like when their backline's being zoned out by the Winston bubble and all the cleave damage, and they have to like focus the Winston, that creates a window in which like your team can basically focus these flanks. Your team can like try to like poke out these flanks and force the enemy back to their team. So afterwards, like after your main tank goes out, even though like they didn't clear these flanks directly, like if your team can like during that window in which your main tank's like zoning out the enemy backline, you can like absolutely threaten kills on like anyone who's trying to like take map control, because like they're split apart from their supports who are being like focused by the main tank. And like doing that, when the Winston jumps out, well, the Winston has still made a lot of space, because your Tracer will be trying to focus like the Echo or like if she's comfortable with the skill matchup, the Kree who's taking the angle, who's gonna be forced back to their team to help like peel for their team, or like just not die, because like their backline needs to like support the Kree in order for him to survive. Otherwise the Tracer is just gonna like win the 1v1. So and like this applies to all comps as well. Like in Orisa, Orisa like as a main tank is a pretty weird main tank in that like she doesn't have an engagement option other than walking with Fortify, but still that's usually with like something, a lot of ults, if you have a lot of ults. But like she's still like Orisa in particular is a special main tank. It like she doesn't like zone out the backline, but like what she makes it hard to do is that like she's a persistent problem. Like she might not do that much damage, but like if she's peeking like a wide sight line, then like she's really hard to force out. So like she isn't good at like directly contesting map control, but like she's gonna make it like hard to like actually use it. So for example, a Kree like on the flank like might be able to like not get killed by Orisa, but like Orisa can like keep focusing the Kree, focus the Kree, and then like the Kree will eventually like have to like go back for healing, or like and like the Orisa shield will like cut off the angle, and like if you want to get rid of Orisa, well, you need a whole team effort because Orisa is like a really tough as hell. Like Orisa is fortified, Orisa has 600 shield, and if you don't close the distance to her, then Orisa is just gonna like live forever, basically, and like she's gonna like make it hard for you to actually like control the map. And like, how about Ryan, for example? Like Ryan isn't really good at drawing isn't as good as drawing attention as like Winston, for example. Like Winston's like the best main tank for drawing attention towards you. Like Winston going in with a bubble, that's something that you cannot ignore. You can't ignore a ball to an extent. You can ignore a Ryan because like your DPS on high ground. And like can just shoot the Ryan in the back, but like you cannot ignore a Winston. Winston is like something you have to deal with, or else you die. That's why like Winston's like they feel that they're doing nothing if they die a lot, but like they're actually doing so much. Like they're like the enemy's gonna be so fucking scared of Winston that like they have to like use all their resources just to clear him, and that means that cooldowns, resources, time does not go into clearing your teammates who can use that attention so damn well, and that's why Winston has been meta in Overwatch League for this season. Like Winston is extremely good at clearing angle, not only like extremely good at like drawing attention, and like also good at clearing angles as well. So if you're DPS on high ground, you still have to be scared of Winston because he can just leap you. But how does a Rhine, in the context of Brawl, not just like the ladder comp where like people just want a Rhine because they want something to like poke from main at. So like how Rhine works is just that like Rhine can clear space, yeah, and Rhine like is really good at clearing angles. That's what he's really good at in terms of map control. Like if the Rhine's in front of your face, like Rhine's fucking slow, but like if you can get the Rhine into like an opponent's face, you guarantee they'll be fucking going back to their team. But like another thing is that like in Brawl, like instead of like trying to go for like a lot of map control, you instead try to like clear enough angles until you can like force the fight on the objective, and then like hopefully like there won't be too many angles to clear, or like you can like speed on their backline and then like force like the team to like peel for their backline, which concedes space to for example, your Kree wants to like take flanks, for example, and like you can in Brawl, like you can threaten a kill like if you get close to the enemy and like force like the enemy to peel like for their teammates. And peeling, like as good as it might sound, like you like generally like you want to avoid peeling as much as possible, like as much as you're allowed. Like if you can. Like in general, like I'm just talking about like things like dive mirrors, but like if you peel too much, then like you're just giving away so much map control, because like if you're Kree taking an angle and suddenly you have to like roll back to your team to like not only because like since the backline's being zoned out, you have to like help your backline to get heals, but also like you have to abandon that angle just to help your core, and then by that time the enemy team will like take those flanks for free, and boom. But anyways, like Ryan, like in Brawl in general, like they don't really like want to take map control, like all three areas of the map, like they don't want to like split apart and spread out because they can't really. But like they want to like use their like high insane close range damage to clear angles, clear high ground as well, and also like try to like threaten kills to force the enemy to give up map control to peel, and use the objective so to force the fight into a really enclosed space. So yeah, that's how like tanks interact with map control. And like before I go into DPS, I'll actually go over supports, because like supports like are playing an extremely important role in map control. I'd say it's almost as important as tank in terms of like interacting with map control, because supports like they have like different ranges, and like generally the trade-off is that like between supports. Oh, hello. Oh. Oh, someone just joined and left. So supports, like, they are generally the trade-off is like they, in exchange for having like more range, their healing output is less. And on the other side of the spectrum, they have less effective range, but they have like more heals. But like, you can't just judge a support by like the amount of heals that they provide, because like, who cares if like fucking Moira can heal 150 HP per second? Like, aside like from certain comps, like, she's useless. And why? Because she does not have the healing range. She has barely any range. And why does range matter in terms of support? Because like, the more range that a support has, like the more they can help support and sustain flanks, and flanks are what matter in terms of map control a lot of the time. So like, why is a support like Brig and Zen, why is a support like Brig, for example, after so many nerfs, still a staple of the Overwatch League meta? Because like, Brig's healing range is insane. It's like 30 meters. And even though like her armor packs may be limited, like, if you're playing with a Brig and you're DPS playing with a Brig, then you could be like anywhere within a map that's like within a reasonable distance, like not like right, for example, like all the way right here, for example, but like, you could be like on the flank and still get healing by Brig, because like Brig has insane range. You can be like taking really deep angles, forcing like the enemy to like react to you and deal with you, and like, you know, if they try to focus you, you can just like, you know, hey, Brig, peek me, boom, here's your healing pack, and yeah, easy. And like, Zen is another example. Zen, it has really limited like heals, but like, in terms of healing range, like, it's the same as Brig. Like, it's the same like thing as Brig, not the same range, but the same thing. Like, for example, if you're playing Tracer, like, Tracer can request a Harmony Orb from like Zen, and like, Tracer can even exit LS for a while and still get heals, and that's huge because it allows Tracer to like go for flanks and like, you know, go for backline really easily with, and like, any poke that she takes can be healed up by like the Zen Harmony Orb. She doesn't have to like keep going back to her team. Like, imagine if this was like Moira Bap. Like, Tracer would have to like, the moment she takes like 30 damage, she has to look for a health pack or go back to her team and waste like 3 or 4 blinks just to get heals. Like, that's why like heal output like just doesn't matter all that much. Like, healing range is more valuable a lot of the time. That's why, for example, Ana is also really powerful in like outside of like, you know, comps that want to stay together like Brawl, because like Ana has like, you know, basically infinite healing range, and like, if you're, and like, for example, like, she's really good with Winston, not only because of Nano Winston, but like, you know, Winston wants to like get behind the enemy, but like, Winston, any poke that he takes, he doesn't want to like just go back to his team all the time. So Ana can like, you know, heal Winston while he's on the flank. Ana can heal Winston while he's like cleaving the backline, and Ana like can like heal Winston during like mid jump, like if he decides to escape. But like, range is extremely valuable, especially at the top level. Also like, some supports, they also have utility that really helps with map control. Like, not only in terms of like, you know, helping your team split apart, but also denying the enemy from taking map control. For example, Zen's Discord Orb is really powerful, because like, if like, let's say like, you have like enemy ball, let's say they're playing like ball, for example, if the enemy's ball is taking a flank, for example, then you can just like discord the ball and send your Tracer with Harmony to like clear the ball out, and suddenly Ball's gonna like take so much damage from the Discord that he's gonna be forced back to his team, unless like they're mirroring, in which case it will be like, you know, micro stuff. But heroes like Zen, they contribute a lot towards map control, not only in terms of like range heals, but also like being able to like deny flanks. Like, for example, hey, hey, like, ball, you want to flank? I'll just place a Discord. I can literally just press E from, like, my back line, and suddenly it's going to be so much more dangerous for you to flank. Like, not only, like, it's going to be more dangerous for him, for, like, the ball to engage, but also, like, while the ball's flanking with the Discord, like, your team can focus him really easily and force him back to his team, or, like, by the time he engages, he basically has 0 HP. So, like, heroes like Zen, they're really good at contributing towards map control because they can like help flanks and also contest flanks safely. It's just like Sigma, but like yeah, like old Sigma especially. Where does this leave us though? Let's go over DPS. So like, it's like some DPS are better at like contributing to map control than others. So for example, a DPS like for example, let me think. Which one is high damage or but less? Let's say a DPS like Sim is not that good at contributing to map control, like unless you can like coordinate like TP like TP like strats that allow you to get behind the enemy. But like if you're not using the TP, then like DPS like Sim, like they have no mobility, they're really squishy, they have limited range, so that means that Sim will have to like stay next to her backline and thus like not contribute much to controlling the flanks. Like for example, can you imagine a Sim like going on a flank? I mean, if you're skilled enough at Sim, your tracking is godlike, maybe, but like in general, like the Sim is really squishy, really fragile, can't go for flanks, and like her map control, how she contributes to map control is like her ability is like her TP that allows her team to get behind the enemy, and her like turrets which allow her to like control some space. Like another example might be like every DPS in the game can contribute to map control of some sort, but okay, it's really hard to like decide, but or like come up with a DPS that's not real, that doesn't have a role in like map control. Well, like another example is like, and like the DPS who like have to like stay close to their team, like they generally compensate in other ways, such as like being able to like use utility that allows them to control the map. So like for example, Torb. Like Torb's like not that squishy, but still like not that mobile. So Torb can't really take flanks, but like Torb's like role in map control is like in the form of his turret. Like with his turret, like he can place his turret somewhere to. Oh, hello. Oh, I love that name.
I can be in both at the same time. I was trying to be in both pugs and watching this in the process. So I guess I can't. Yeah.
So like DPS like Torb like allows them to control space in the form of their turret, and like turret for example allows them to like hey like I'm playing Torb, and like I might have to like stay next to my team, but like my turret can be placed on a flank, and like if you're having a tracer for example who tries to like take that flank, then like the turret's just gonna shoot you, and then like you have to abandon that flank. So like Torb is really good, actually decent in taking map control, in that like you can place your turret somewhere on a key flank route, and then like they have to deal with it. They have to like spam it out before like they can actually take the flank. So like every DPS in the game like can like contribute to map control of some sort, but like there are some like DPS who are better at it than others, and like one example is Tracer. And why Tracer? Well, Tracer might not do a lot of like damage. Like Tracer's like kind of like a tank even. Like it sounds ridiculous, but like Tracer's like the same as like an off tank for example, in that like they might not necessarily be able to like kill that much. Like they'll win, like they're better than off tanks in that they can win duels, but they're not like known for like mass damage. They're not able to like just like one shot enemies. But like the thing is that like if there's a tracer on you, you have to respect the tracer, and more importantly, tracers has a lot of mobility, so like she can like contest flanks without she doesn't have to stay next to her team because like she can just take health packs or like use move blinks to dodge, and like more importantly, tracers can a tracer can like deny flanks from the enemy just like an off tank. For example, like if a Kree or an Ashe wants to like take this angle, and tracer you can just send a tracer to clear the Ashe, force her back to her team, and like you can just and like if there's an enemy tracer, you can like shoot mark the enemy tracer to like prevent them from okay sorry. You can mark the enemy tracer to prevent them from flanking, especially when you have like a lot of help in form of like Discord and Harmony from your Zen, for example. So like tracers, like dive DPS in general, like they're really good at like controlling flanks and stuff, and that's why tracer is also like really valued in like top level play. Like she isn't like a assassin, like she isn't valued for being an assassin more than, and that's why I see sometimes tracer in like double shield comps. Like it might seem like a throw because like double shield doesn't have any like dive heroes other than if you put a tracer in, it doesn't have any dive potential, but other than like tracer, but like the tracers are really really good in like preventing enemies from taking flanks. Like let's say if you're like a Widow or Hanzo, you want to take a flank, well you have to worry about tracer just like dueling you, killing you, forcing you back to your team. So like tracer is extremely unreasonably good at controlling space, and like even if they like nerf tracer or like they reduce her fall off range by like half today, like I bet you'd still see tracer in pro play, because like tracer is like one of the best DPS for controlling space. Like tracer not only is good in like following up on dives and stuff, but like tracer is like extremely good at like drawing, not only following up on dives, but also and not only like drawing attention towards herself, but like tracer is extremely good at controlling space for DPS. That's why tracer is like probably the defining DPS of like high level play. Tracer is like the DPS that helps the team control the map the most. So we went over all the roles. Let's go over before we go over to the pro like review, let's go over like how like each type of comp interacts with map control. And we already went over Brawl. So like Brawl wants to like clear angles, speed on players to like force peel, force the fight to happen in a smaller space, and use the objective to force the enemy to fight in close space. And like generally Brawl will look to like play more in like closed space, use the objective as like a bargaining chip, but play more in closed space to force the enemy into like a fight that is like better for like close range heroes. But like how does comp like poke or dive, how do those styles interact with map control? Let's go over dive, because this is really misunderstood by a lot of players. Well, like dive, a lot of players think that dive is all about jumping on one target, and that's wrong. So what is dive really about? Well, like let's say they're running a poke comp, they're taking angles and stuff. This is like the best example, and these are really shitty angles, but like examples. Let's say that like the poke comp wants to be taking angles, maximum opportunities, but like you as a dive team, like you have mobility, you can split apart from your team a lot more than like poke heroes can, before like you have to like look for health packs or look for like you have to look back to your team for like support. Okay, let's make this easier. Let's say this is a poke hero. Let's say they're running like a really pure poke comp, so let's say they're running Ashe, Hanzo, for example. Where's Hanzo? There it is. So like you as a dive team, like you can control flanks like much better than the enemy can. Like not control, not like the enemy like will be able to use flanks sooner, because like they have range and can actually use those flanks. Like you as tracer, you can be on the flank, but if you're not next to an enemy, then you can't really do damage. So like they can use these flanks sooner, but you as a dive team can contest those flanks much better than they can contest those flanks. So like you're gonna be like, say, hey, I'm gonna send a tracer to like clear the Ashe. I'm gonna like use my echo to like poke out the hog, force him closer to his team. I'm gonna like, you know, have Winston jump the Hanzo here, force him back to his team. And like notice how like when you do this, like when everyone's like in here, you force the enemy to like play like together. You force them to clump up. Well, so let's go to the next step of dive. Let's go over what the dive tank's abilities of Winston and Brawl. So like when you clear the flanks, you obviously make space for your backline, who is usually more stationary, to push up because they don't have to worry about like, you know, being shot on the sides. So like once you clear like all the angles, like notice how like the enemies like kind of crowd together. They're kind of like, you know, in this huge clump. Well, like contrary to like what you might think, this is what Dive actually wants. Dive wants the enemy team to play together. And why? Like, let's take a look at tanks like Winston and Brawl. Winston has cleave damage, and if the enemy's playing together, then like that's like six player cleave damage. Brawl, like power drive, like impacts an area, and if they're all stuck in one area, then that's a lot of power drive damage. But more importantly, Dive is about like, you know, taking map control and then like looking to use your tanks to like engage from multiple sides. And like when they're together, like suddenly you can like, they don't have a back line, they don't have a front line, like it doesn't really matter anymore. Like to put it cheesily, like their back line, like their front line is their back line now, because like you're not going at them from one angle and like, you know, maybe a Brawl comp will. You're going at them from like multiple angles. Like you're creating so many threats from like multiple sides that like they have to split attention so much that like they can't just put up a resistance anymore. Like you're just like putting pressure from every possible angle, and you're just like encircling them, you're just surrounding them. So Dive is all about like taking map control and then using those flanks and angles to like, you know, go from the enemy, approach the enemy from multiple sides, and then like target focus wise, like you're gonna like decide later. Like you don't like start a fight by saying, hey, let's dive Zen. No, you know that's not how you play Dive. That's not what Dive is. That's why teams and like, you know, NAEU, they're so bad at playing Dive, because they don't really know what Dive is. Dive is all about like taking control of the map and then like using that control to like engage from multiple sides. And then like you decide target focus later, like you know, once you have everyone surrounding an enemy, then focusing the Zen's pretty easy. Like everyone can do it. Even a Break can like, you know, try to like Brawl, and Ana can like, you know, look fish for a nade and get a 6-player nade. Like you take map control first, you decide on the target later. So now hopefully like they have an idea of what like Dive like is really. Dive's not about like, you know, jumping on one enemy. Dive's all about taking map control, like using your mobile heroes who are better at like contesting angles than like non-mobile heroes, and then like you gotta use that control to just collapse on the enemy like this, or like. Yeah, and Dive, like, where the misconception really comes from is that, like, Dive's really good at, like, you know, punishing enemies for being isolated. For example, if the Hanzo's, like, you know, right here, but the team's right here, then you can just, like, you know, send Tracer and Echo to, like, kill the Hanzo. So Dive, like, is really good at, like, corralling enemies and, like, punishing them if they don't, like, go back to their team. But Dive's also, like... But Dive, like, the actual engages, like, they want to be able... You don't want to go for isolated targets as much. You want to, like, go for maximum amount of impact. Like, your Winston wants to, like, zone off the entire enemy backline, for example, so your team can, like, look to punish those splits or like, you know, at least, like, get a lot of damage in. Because Dive, like, one thing it does lack is, like, you know, sustained damage. So... How does a poke comp, meanwhile, and let's actually, how does a poke comp want to, like, control the map, and let's actually use a Brawl comp for this. So, like, Brawl wants to stay together. Brawl is really shit at map control, because, like, they have to stay together, and, like, a lot of players will be like, hey, yay, my team's grouped up, all is 6, it must be really good for me. Well, like, you have to, first of all, as Brawl. But more importantly, like, if grouping up to 6 is the best way to play Overwatch, then Grav would be a fucking useless ult. Like, don't you want the don't the enemy want to be grouped as 6 then? So like, enough for, you know, semi-ranting aside, like, I just see like that advice parroted so much and it's wrong. So like, what a poke comp wants to do is like, they have long range. They have like they have they have like a lot of damage, but like they don't want to be shooting shields and defense matrices all day. So like and like natural cover exists. So like why can't like the Brawl team just hide? Well, that's where like taking angles like comes to play. Like as a poke comp, you need control of like the area around the map to be like to do like the most impact. And what does that mean? Well, you want to be taking angles. You want to be looking for, you want to be looking beyond the shield, for example. You want to be looking for like ways to like get around the enemy like front line without risking yourself unnecessarily too much. But like poke comps, like they don't want to stay together, and that's why like and that's like a common mistake I see when many teams run double shield. They just stack too much. They just put Orisa and Sigma together, and like they just use Sigma as a discount Orisa, but poke comps, like they want maximum angles. Like your Hanzo wants to be able to shoot the backline. Your Ashe wants to be able to like get dynamites not blocked by shields and shoot the backline as well. Your Sigma wants to like not like use his like bullets to like not use his projectiles around to like that do a lot of splash damage to hit shields. Like your Hog wants to be on the flank because he's self-sufficient. And like he can flank, but more importantly, like you don't want to be hooking shields or DM or defensive matrices or like making your hook so telegraphed. You want to be like the element of surprise. Let's use a D.Va here. I can't stand Rein Zarya. It's an overrated comp. Like there's no reason to play Rein Zarya over Rein D.Va. And the reason like you don't want to play Rein Zarya over Rein D.Va is like exactly map control. D.Va's like just better at map control, and like, but to continue, like your Hog wants to be taking flanks to get hook opportunities. Like even your Zen, like if you're not Zen's really squishy, but if you're playing against Brawl, you don't really have to worry about being dove because like, what can this McFlurry do? This McFlurry DPS line do against you? Like even Zen, like you could look for an angle of yourself. Like Zen's really good and valued for his poke damage. And like as Break, like you're not gonna get too much use of off angles. Like you might take angles just because you have to like sustain. You're kind of like the raid boss. Like you get to you're kind of like the one who feeds heals all these angles. And yeah, sorry for like my shit drawings, but like yeah, like poke comps, like you don't want to stay stacked together. You want to like take maximum angles. Like even if the enemy's playing dive, like you want to be taking angles so you can like at first so that you can poke out the enemy tanks more, and like the mentality has changed like from like like back in the day, like players like were not only more able to, but they preferred like using like engaged base counters to dive. Like when the dive engages, like you counter and dive. Then like you would have like Crease Stun, Mei, which used to be really damn overpowered. You had Sombra Hack, and like you thought that would counter dive, and like it did because like it was like those abilities were so overtuned back then that like you didn't have to like poke out tanks beforehand that much. You just like throw abilities at the tanks and they die. But now that like those things have been nerfed, CC has been nerfed, Sustain has been nerfed, and like the game has turned from a more defensive mindset to a more offensive mindset, as I covered in the last like seminar I did. Now like the mentality is that like we don't want like the dive team to actually get on top of us that easily. We want to be taking angles. We want to preempt them. We want to like shoot the tanks so we can buy time to like poke the enemy out, because like shooting tanks will force them back to their team, or like force them to look for health sources, or force them to like awkwardly look for Ana LOS, for example, and then like it would buy time for you to poke some more, while the dive team usually wants like force a brawly fight. Like dive comps, like they're really just like Brawl comps with mobile heroes. Like there are comps like there are like half dive comps, like hybrid comps that combine poke heroes with dive heroes. I'll explain that after like shortly, but But like dive comps are really just brawl comps like that have like good mobility that allow you to go for angles and like force a fight from multiple sides instead of just having to speed on and forehead at the enemy. Just stealing a quote by like Spylo. Yeah. Let's go over like what a poke dive comp wants to do. Like instead of playing double shield like back in January, I think like instead of a double shield, many teams preferred Ball Sigma instead. And why Ball Sigma? Like usually you run Ball with Tracer, and the answer: contesting map control. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you have a Ball and Tracer. Okay, where the fuck is the Tracer? Tracer. Okay, the sorting isn't really good in this program. Let's say you have a Tracer, and usually you run Briggs and Ashe. Yeah, Ashe is still pretty good, but like I think this was like before one of her nerfs. But anyways, the thing was that like against like a traditional double shield comp, like the hybrid Ball Sigma comp's much better at contesting flanks. So like the Ball Tracer can like force like enemies taking off angles like a Widow to like go back to their team, and then the thing is that like these ball comps, like they just force the enemy to play closer together and give up map control. That's one reason. Like even though you have like less poke, you have like more ability to like contest those angles that like can be so dangerous to your backline. And like once you corral them together, well, you get the benefits of like a dive. So like once you like take control of the flanks, you just slam, look for like threaten kills, force out cooldowns, and during that time, remember how I said main tanks are really good at like zoning out the backline? Like main tanks like Winston and Ball, like dive tanks. Well, like the Ball slamming creates a huge window of opportunity in which, like for example, your Ashe can freely peek. Your Sigma can get more aggressive, like way more aggressive. Your like Brig Zen can also look to like aggress. Like it creates a window of opportunity for like your team to like pressure the enemy and like basically do whatever they want for like 2 seconds or so. But like really good teams, they make those 2 seconds count. Like for example, let's say like the Ball slams, like the Tracer doesn't necessarily have to like directly follow up. The Tracer can like say, hey Widow, how are you gonna receive heal from Brig because like my Ball's like pressuring you out. I'm just gonna like focus you and you're dead because you're squishy. So like the reason why like poke and dive work so well together, like poke heroes and dive heroes, is because like both poke and dive are like map control oriented styles of play. Like they both want control of the map, but dive is really good at denying enemies the control of the map. That's why it's so powerful against like double shield, especially on maps where like narrower sightlines where like you can't just like play like extremely far away and try to go for like spam. And with mobility, you also get like the ability to like contest point, roll infinitely on point, for example. What else? With mobility, you also get to punish the enemies for like holding like aggressively. Like you can just like sneak a Tracer on point. For example, on the Paul Sanctum, like there's this choke that players like to hold, but you can just send a Tracer or Ball like behind them, and then it will force them to like come back. So like a lot of like good things come from being able to like play with mobility, but most importantly, like the ability to like contest map control and create windows in which like you can go for like more aggressive angles, go for more aggressive peaks and stuff is really valuable. So that's enough of like on covering all the styles. Let's go to the actual review. And let's see how and anyways, before I continue, any questions? Let me see if there's any messages.
I'm good so far. Thank you.
No problem. So let's go over how a Fuel failed to were really they flunked this map. Let's see how Fuel. Okay, my mouse cursor sometimes glitches, unfortunately. There it is. So let's skip to like yeah. 4, 3, 2, So they're gonna. So Sparkle's gonna switch to Tracer, but let's see what both teams are running. So Fuel, they're running a Somber Tracer dive comp, and this is a pretty hard dive comp. You're not gonna go for like any like long poke phases. You're just gonna go, hey, I'm gonna set up our Tracer and Somber behind you, and we're just gonna like go for like engages with our monkey, they're running on a break, which obviously can sustain flanks really well. But let's see what hunters are running. Like they're running the double shield with like Hanzo, the Mei, which seems like a weird pick, but it's useful for like dividing the front line from the back line when like Fearless tries to engage. And they have like a Monk and Nisha who's gonna like pocket leave. And this is just gonna like heal Orisa and Sigma. So like, what do both teams want to do? Well, like hunters, like they're running Orisa, Sigma, and Hanzo with a pocket. So like, what they want to do is that like before like Fuel get close to them, they want to be taking angles, and they want to be like putting their Orisa here. They want to put their Sigma on an angle, put their Hanzo potentially on an angle, and like they just want to like control the map, control like this area of the map, and like make it hard for like Fearless and Hanbin to like get onto brawling range of like Gaga and Elsa without like taking significant amount of poke damage, or like slowing them down so that like Leave has time to get picks. So like what they essentially want to do is that like they just want to control the map, take angles, create poke sight lines, and like just make it extremely hard for Fuel to like even stage a dive without good control of the map. Spending a lot of time clearing angles and stuff. So like right here, like let's look at the point though. This is really important. So like as I said, like the point is like the objective, right? The important thing. But like you don't control the point in a dive comp by occupying the point. You control the point in a dive comp by like controlling the areas around the point, so that if the enemy like tries to contest point, can just like drop on the back line or drop on them without using cooldowns. And like in pursuit of this, like for Fuel to like take this point, they have to be controlling this high ground. Like otherwise, like like if they try to like dive here, then like Leave is just gonna like take this high ground. He's gonna be free, and then he's just gonna like poke out dive tanks, get picks on the back line, and do a lot of things. Like for example, let's say like you don't take like control of the flanks, and let's say like you think dive's all about jumping on one target, and you just like send your monkey, send your Tracer in one direction, send your Diva. Like, well, like the Orisa can use cooldowns to survive, but even if she dies, like you're not clearing the flanks line. Like your backline's gonna want to push up, but like if they push up, they're just gonna get picked off because you still haven't cleared the pocketed Hanzo, you still haven't cleared the Sigma, and like it's gonna be so hard for you to dive when you don't have map control, when you haven't like cleared the flanks first. Like to effectively dive, you need to be like forcing like the Sigma, the Hanzo, for example, back to like their team. Like they need to be bunkering down before like you can like say, hey, I can go behind you. I can just like, and your backline is like, hey, there are no angles beside me, so I can just push up and start brawling. So like this is like what Fuel like they want to do. They want to prevent like the enemy team from using this high ground, or like using like this angle, for example, or using this angle to like kind of poke from behind. So like let's take a look. So right here, you see, I don't like what hunters are doing. Like they're just stacking with each other. They're just so scared of like the dive that like they don't get any effective poke done. Like Fearless gets a bit of poke. Hanbin is healthy though. Fielder is also healthy, and they're just like poking air. Like they're not controlling this area of the map. They're not having a Hanzo here to like poke out like Fearless, like buy time for like, for example, imagine if a Hanzo was like right here. It would force like Fearless to like, it would force them to like, hey, like go here, and in this case like there will be less vision of the map. Like you can't see the enemy as well as you're like right here. But more importantly, like once you force them back here, you can like you can get a bit greedy and try like poke them out from this angle, and it will like force them like clear you out before like you can before like they can like go into like the players, the group that actually matters to dive. So like even though splitting might be a bit like dangerous, like early fight it's okay because like the tanks still aren't in range. Like once the tanks are in range, like only when the tanks are like in range of like the of like your team should you be worried and go back to your team and bunker like this. But you just want to buy time, and hunters are not doing that. So right here, like fuel, they have two options. They could either like just like jump in and it's okay because like double shield isn't that brawly. Like you can't really be punished for like using your leap as much as against a brawl comp. So you could just go main as long as your like DPS are going from other angles. That's fine. But another option which I might like better is that since like hunters aren't like doing a good job of taking the angles, like they could just like look to like get around them. They like Fearless could jump like up here, and then like wait for his leap, and then he could like jump up here, and then get healed from like up here, and then like he could drop on the back line, and he could like, and while that's happening, he can use like this cover to like help. Not help like for him not to take poke or use his diva to like defense matrix some of the spam, but but like I think like Fearless could have like maybe like looked to like stage more, but generally in Overwatch League like they won't just allow you to like stage for free, so I understand like why Fearless would just want to like go in even though it's a weaker engage. So Fearless is like going in taking a lot of attention, but like notice like what space they're not like clearing right now, what space they're not controlling right now. Exactly this space. And like so like why isn't like Sparkle like or like Doha like on high ground? Like why doesn't Doha like go up here and try like poke from here? Like for one, like if like Leave tries like take this angle, then there would be the threat of the hack, and Sparkle couldn't be like on this high ground as well. Sparkle could try to follow up from this high ground, like he can still shoot from here. I think this is just within fall off range. He could like drop down and look to recall back up to high ground. But more importantly, like why isn't like Fuel trying to like control this high ground? Like why not? I wouldn't mind even if like I wouldn't mind even if Hanbin like went up here and like tried to like maybe control this high ground. Like they're like all crowd together, but like they're just not like taking map control well enough. Like I know Hanbin has to like peel a bit for Fearless, but Fearless like could like maybe use this cover, and all Fearless really has to do is like not even have to do like damage necessarily, like that much damage. He just needs to draw attention, and then like Feel could look to like set up their angles at top, and then like look to like kill Jinmu, kill Leave, or force out Ice Block before. But like they're just not controlling the angles, and look what Leave does. Yeah. But more importantly, like by not controlling the angles, like it's gonna be like kind of like there's an escape route for like anyone who wants to escape the Feels' dive. Like if you're the dive team, you want to be able to escape. You want to be able to like not let the enemy escape your dive. Like they can't kite back. But in this case, like since Feel are not taking control of like the flanks that well, the enemy can literally just like maybe kite back. Or like since the dive isn't that good, they can just stand and fight. But like another thing is like why isn't like Feel like positioned here? Like why isn't their backline like trying to like position here, and like they could like look to like support Fearless a bit, and then like if Sparkle didn't die, then like they could look to take this angle, and then try like rest here, and then afterwards you can go for like an engage, and then you get angles like nade, and then you have like good sight lines. You can pivot here. There's a lot of cover to use and good things, but But like they're just like kind of like pushing in like as if they were running Brawl, but like that's not effective. Anyways, and they have to like back up. Okay, so they're poking from here for some initial poke, and then they want to like rotate back to defend point. Okay, so like I don't really like that I mean like now they're kind of concerned, like I still don't really like how like they're like way too concerned about the dive. Like maybe like they could take a conservative angle here and then like, you know, they could just kite back here and it's okay. Like the angle isn't too deep. But and like in any case you can like look for it and you can like have your Mercy heal you a bit, you can have your BAP like, you know, heal you. Like you still have peel there, but and you're not running like, you know, a lot of CC anyways, except Mayfree's soft CC. But so like you don't really need to be that grouped to like peel it off. But like they're running like, you know, they're not even running breaks, so like their strategy to peel it off is like literally to like do a lot of poke. But like in this case, they're not like using their Mercy to like take angles, take more aggressive angles, and like this allows like, you know, a Doha to like go, you know, flank for free, like through like here, for example. Like I think he used this flank here, but like in this case he used this flank because nobody's controlling this angle, nobody's poking out this angle. So like map control like means that like having good map control means that like you can like just go around the enemy. Like you can just like not go around the enemy, like you can force the enemies to like you can force the enemies to like take longer routes, for example. That's another benefit. But but like okay, I'm not so like they pop the nano, but like firstly, where's Doha? So like so like before they pop the nano, Doha actually gets forced out, I think. Like see, they're impatient. They didn't like, why don't they like wait for like Doha to be on an angle first? Or like why don't they wait for like Sparkle to like, you know, maybe matrix some of this and then have Sparkle take an angle of his own? Like why don't they wait for like, why don't they like wait to like take map control before like going in? Like you need like some positions to like work with before like even a nano engage will work. So like in this case, like Fearless jumps in and like he focuses leave and he knocks people off the high ground, but like because like there's no angle control, like they can just like kite back to here and then like spam out the dive from here. Sparkle and Hanbin are trying to like go for the tanks, but like look at what Leave does. They're not clearing the angles, they're not taking map control before going in, and they just die. It's like this is no good. Like they're just not like taking map control well before like the dives actually happen. Like you can't just like go in and have the enemy kite back into angles to like poke you out. You have to like clear all the angles and surround them so that they can't kite back to anywhere. If they kite back into one of your players. So right here they're running Brawl, and this means like they want to clear angles and then force a point. Keyword is clear angles. Now like I'm not sure why like they're back up to the high ground, which is understandable. Like against a Brawl you don't want to be on the ground if possible. But like their Sigma backs up to high ground, and they have Gaga like as kind of like bait. But like they pop like Bongo, but like if they pop Bongo, then why aren't they like more aggressive? Like this isn't even the dive comp anymore. You can just literally like send Leave here and like use this Bongo to like do 300, 400 damage to like one of the tanks, or like do damage to like the supports and kill them. Like they're popping it, but like they're not only like they're popping Tempo Ultimate, but they only have one player follow up from it. Like Bongo and Double Shield like can be used as like a Tempo Ultimate, like one that allows you to just go in. Okay, so like now like they try to clear the high ground finally. Like they use the TP, but it gets destroyed. It's a huge TP. And like the TP gets destroyed. Like great TP destruction, but at the same time, like why do they go in? Like they haven't TP, they haven't cleared the angle, and they just like go in without Fearless no less. But they go in and they don't clear this angle. They just push on the point, and then like look at what happens. They just get ganked from multiple sides, and boom, fight's over. And like they switched to Mei, which is gonna be understandable, but well, again, it's like I mean, it's okay. So like right here again, look, they're gonna push right side, I think, yeah. They're gonna rotate through right side, but instead of like you know trying to keep going and like clear the high ground, they just walk into point. And this is bad because like look at what Elsa is able to do. Elsa is able to get so much free spam from that high ground. They're not clearing the high ground. They're just walking onto point without clearing the angles. They haven't cleared enough space. Like if you after clearing this angle, like you could decide to like turtle point, or you could decide to push them, but like they cannot do either of that until they've cleared the high ground. This is a must. You must clear the high ground before pushing on to point. You can't just forehead on point like this. Oh my god. This is so... Well, like you have a window. Like, don't you want to set up your window on like maybe high ground? Like, well, like why? Like, what is this window gonna do? Like, maybe it allows Fielder to poke and sustain the team a bit, but the problem arises. The problem still remains. Like, you still haven't cleared the map control, and you're getting punished for it. And yeah, this is lost. And let's go over like this fight on defense. And so if you are running like a really hard dive comp, while like hunters are running double bubble, and like how Fiora want to play this is like they just want to play this like really aggressively. Don't let Elsa get high energy. Don't let like Leave just poke at you forever. Like you want to like go for really hard dives with this, and like preferably like you might decide even to play in like here. You might decide to just like hold here and try to like brawl it out. They have no, I mean they have a Sombra, so that's why they're worried about back caps. But as you can see, like right here, Sparkle is like on the flank, but he takes the flank way too early. He doesn't hide himself enough, and like he just gets forced out. Hello. Anyways, yeah, this like this thing is almost over. But you can watch like the replay on Twitch if you're interested in like the content. There's a lot of background content, but so right here, like Sparkle like gets like poked out, and then like he dies, and by the time Fearless is in to try to relieve the pressure, he dies. Like Sparkle dies. And like, but here's a good thing that Hunters did. Like they didn't just push onto a point. They saw Sparkle on an angle, and like they saw that Fearless they saw the team wasn't fully ready. Like their backline's still here. They're not in this advanced position, and like they just say, hey, Sparkle's like, we can just force out Sparkle before the fight even starts, and force out they did. They have a Kree, which makes it easier, but that bubble was bad. But I mean, it blocked the nade though, so actually it was good. Well, like the problem with double bubble is just that like no DM means you have to waste bubble a lot. And the nade still gets 3. So like they like stabilize in this bubble, and then let's see how they execute this. So they go in. Like Fuel go in, but like since Sparkle was killed early, it doesn't get the results it wanted, and yeah. And at this time they could just push on the point. They already got 3 picks, but anyways, and yeah, that's basically it for, and despite a bit of staggering, yeah. So the lesson here is, Fuel were running a dive comp, but, like at first, and they're running a Brawl comp, but in both of those comps, like, they failed to, like, adequately take map control. They failed to, like, control this high ground. And they also failed to like, on Brawl, like mind the angles and, like, try to, and like, set up their poke abilities on, like, high ground. But, like, a lot of, like, the whole attack from Fuel stems from the fact that they failed to adequately control the high ground. And Hunters, like, even though they did make mistakes, they did, like, stack their Rissa and Sigma together, and Hanzo sometimes as well. And that means, like, you don't really control the map as well. But, like, they stacked the Rissa and Sigma together, and Hanzo. But, like, when it actually mattered, when it, like, actually really mattered, like, they just exploited that. They like, took the high ground. They put the Leave on high ground, and he just, like, got picks after pick after pick to, like, derail Fuel. Like, even during, like, Nano and EMP engages, Fuel didn't take the map control, so, like, Hunters, like, they could just kite the aggression and use angles. They could just kite in multiple directions and use those angles, like spam out Fuel from multiple sides. So, like, anyways, that's all I have to say for today. I will post a link on Twitch for like, the whole, like, for, like, the whole talk. But yeah, I hope anyone watching on Twitch and like, for like the 5 minutes you've been here, Drew, enjoyed. And yeah, no chat, but anyways, peace. Yeah, let me stop streaming.